Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to NAIFA Live. We are so excited to have you all here today. We have a fantastic speaker lined up, but first, as always, we are going to kick things over to NAIFA leader John D. Richardson of NAIFA, Tennessee for the Pledge of Allegiance. John, take it away.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks so much, John. And now for some NAIFA announcements, NAIFA CEO Kevin Mayu.
Hello, NAIFA Nation. Welcome to your September 2022 NAIFA Live. First, I want to send out our thoughts and prayers and support to any NAIFA member and to others in our communities that have been impacted by recent natural disasters that we've had throughout this country, including the flooding that has recently taken place in Kentucky. As a reminder, NAIFA has a family response fund that is available to help NAIFA members when a natural disaster or crisis like this occurs. NAIFA members support each other constantly. If you are interested in providing support to the NAIFA Family Response Fund, please consider making a donation at members.naifa.org/fund. That same webpage will also give you, if you're a NAIFA member who has been negatively impacted, information about how you can apply for relief from the fund. Let's do our part to help out our NAIFA family when they're in a time of need. Also want to remind you, it is September. September is Life Insurance Awareness Month. Life Insurance Awareness Month, also known as LIAM, is a massive industry effort to help bring more awareness out to the general public about the need for life insurance. Our friend and our partners at Life Happens takes the lead on Life Insurance Awareness Month each and every year. And this year we've got a great new spokesperson for the month, and that's Rosalind Sanchez. And to help promote Life Insurance Awareness Month, NAIFA's got a number of activities that we've got going on, including a live Twitter chat that took place today with Rosalind. I know many of our chapters are out there actively promoting LIAM. Many of our individual members are also using the hashtag LIAM, L-I-A-M, in many of their social media posts to help promote this month. Please continue to do so. The more we can collectively help raise awareness of the need for life insurance and how more Americans should get it, the better that is for everybody. So let's do our part this month. I also want to thank all of our chapter leaders out there that have gone to their localities or to their state leadership and gotten a proclamation from their state or their city or their county declaring September Life Insurance Awareness Month in their area. Well done. Kudos to you. Thank you again for helping us raise visibility about the critical need for life insurance and how every American should consider that as part of their financial plan. September also marks a month where we crank up our membership recruitment efforts. Summer is over, we are into the fall, more of our chapters are beginning their programming, lots of events are going on. So a couple things. One, we do want to drive more people into joining NAIFA as members for a whole lot of reasons. The more people that we have, the better our advocacy voice is, but also the bigger our network of advisors in NAIFA can be. And we've got tons of activities that are taking place this month at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level. On our webpage, again, naifa.org, you've got a calendar of events that lists what's going on and encourage you to take advantage of the many activities that are going on, again, at the chapter or affiliate level, as well as the programming that NAIFA itself is producing. For those of you that are in the advanced practice space, we have the Advanced Practice Center, which is a collaborative effort between us and the Society of Financial Service Professionals. And we're going to hold another Advanced Practice Symposia on September 29th in the Philadelphia area. If you're in the Philadelphia area, I'd encourage you, if you're in the advanced practice space, to consider going to that symposia. But if you're not in the area, you'll also be able to live stream it. So to learn more about that activity, go to the AP Center, again, theapcenter.org for information about that symposium. We'd also, for those of you that have folks in your office, and there's other people that are advisors but aren't yet NAIFA members, we'd like to encourage them all to join and become active members. And with that, we're looking for more agencies to become 100% agencies or to become financial security champions. And again, deepen that level of engagement within NAIFA so we can do more as an association for the profession and the industry and the 90 million American families that we serve. So if your office is interested in getting more involved, we'd be glad to do a presentation for you. Please contact your chapter membership chair or feel free to email us at the headquarters at recruitment@naifa.org. Again, recruitment@naifa.org, and we'll be glad to help you put together a presentation and again, get more people involved in our NAIFA family. Speaking of NAIFA family, our membership is important because it helps on so many different levels, including what I said before about the public policy space. And that is helping to educate public policymakers, state legislators, insurance commissioners, governors, congressmen, senators, executive office officials here in Washington, D.C., about the impacts that public policy has on their constituents. And again, about how we should be encouraging more Americans to be on that path towards financial security. Getting more people engaged in the political advocacy process helps us amplify that voice and have a greater ability to influence and to inform policymakers as to what happens from the policies that they're considering. We also do that through supporting NAIFA PAC, our political action committee at both the federal level as well as in our states all across this country. And your engagement as a Main Street American that deals with folks back in your communities is incredibly important because you're a voter. But on top of being a voter, you're also a person who works with tons of people in your local community and understands their needs. And that perspective is important for policymakers to hear. So we're encouraging you to, as a member of NAIFA, to one, be involved, two, help us grow, but three, also consider a contribution to our political action committee. So please check out that. If you are an NAIFA PAC supporter, we have a special 1-hour webinar that's taking place on September 29th with Nathan Gonzalez, who's a TV commentator, and he's going to give us an inside view on the midterm elections. But look up information about our advocacy program and how you can support NAIFA PAC, and you can do that at naifa.org/advocate. Again, you've heard enough of me talking today, so let's get to the meat of the program, and that is hearing from Van Mueller. Many of you all know Van. He is a tremendous speaker and supporter of this industry. He has been on the NAIFA main stage many times. He served as a NAIFA national trustee, and he loves this industry and this profession like you would not believe. And we're going to hear a very inspirational message from him right now about why now is a tremendous time to be an insurance and financial professional. So please welcome my good friend, Van. Van, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Kevin, for that kind introduction. I really appreciate it. And I'm so excited to be back amongst the NAIFA members. I've been a NAIFA member for so many years, I can't even count that high anymore. But I'm really excited about the times that we're in. Two important considerations about what we're going to talk about today. First, it's the greatest time ever to be an insurance and financial professional. In fact, I believe you are so vital. And here's why. It's not that the other professionals aren't of high quality and so forth, but this is very important. In a time of tremendous uncertainty where really nobody knows what's going to happen, most of the other professionals, think about this, accountants, attorneys, bankers, trust officers, they're great at answering questions. But gosh, if our customers don't know what questions to ask, then they're in serious jeopardy with all the considerations that have to be given nowadays. And so what I'm concerned about is that we in our industry rise to our spectacular level of we're the only financial professionals who can ask the questions. We need to ask questions. Listen to this. I hope you'll laugh. What if a customer knew we were a salesperson and knew we were coming to sell them something, but we could ask them a question that was so powerful that even if they knew we were coming to sell them something, they would still want to have an appointment with us because they'd want to know the answer. See, those are the kind of questions. What's the best age to take your Social Security? Do you think we're going to have another financial catastrophe like 2007 and 8? What do you want to happen this time? And why do you keep using a strategy that you already know isn't going to work? What if there was a way to make a decision about whether you'd want to be rich or would you want to guarantee that you'd never be poor? And what if all we had to ask you was, what if there was a way that even if you completely ran out of money, you would never run out of income? My goodness, wouldn't you want to know information like that? Even if you didn't do anything, wouldn't you want to be aware that that was possible, Mr. and Mrs. Customer? And so the point I'm going to make throughout this entire opportunity that you've allowed me to share some ideas with you is that please don't tell anybody anything, because truly I'm going to prove to you here in a moment, I hope, that we really don't know anything, and that so much of the information that we think we're sharing with people has been so manipulated, so desperately badly manipulated, that it's not accurate. And so what we have to do is find a way to have a conversation with our customers about, what do you think would be the best situation for you? Are you more worried about taxes? Are you more worried about inflation? Are you more worried about running out of income in retirement? And we want to make sure that we have that conversation with every single American. So they've asked me to talk for a few minutes. And if you know me at all, I love talking about economics. I just love it. But also, I'm not going to spend as long as you think I'm going to spend talking about it, but I'm going to try and show you that there are great questions that we can ask to get appointments based on what's happening. And second, we have solutions. This industry right now, it's the perfect time to sell cash value life insurance. It is the perfect time to sell single premium immediate annuities or income annuities. It is the greatest time ever to sell deferred or variable annuities or fixed indexed annuities. It's the greatest time ever. We have the best products we've ever had, and we have a situation where Americans need us desperately. So let's talk about a couple of things for a second. First of all, we just had a jobs report. One came out this morning, but a week ago, where they were really, really proud of what happened. In fact, even though we now for sure have had 2 quarters of negative growth, which by definition is a recession, the government is still trying to claim that we are not in a recession. The government's trying to claim, how can we be in a recession when we have job growth of 528,000 jobs in July, and the August report just came out this morning about 325,000 jobs, which was a little bit more than what they thought they were going to have. But let me explain to you, when they finally break down the job description of the jobs that were created in July, listen to this. Do you know that 384,000 of those jobs, those 528,000 jobs, were for part-time work? Now think about that. Second, 92,000 people added a second job, because 60% of America, because of what's going on in our country right now, is now living paycheck to paycheck. And I'm even talking about people that make $100,000 a year. Now, stop and think about this. I want you to pay attention. In October every year, and it's such a valuable tool for talking to people, the Social Security Administration puts out a report called Wage Statistics. And it comes out every October, and they've done it every year since 1990. It's amazing information. And listen to what you'll find out here. 50% of America makes less than $35,000 a year. 50%. 67% of America makes less than $52,000 a year, and 80% of America makes less than $75,000 a year. 80%. Now, in the places that you live, if you're married with 2 children and you're making $75,000 a year, are you rich? No, you're living essentially paycheck to paycheck. And with inflation destroying the purchasing power of your money by 9%, 8%, 7%, whatever it's going to be, it's going to demolish the purchasing power of your money. And so that 70,000, 75,000 is going to buy less and less. Want to hear another statistic? 91% of America makes less than 100,000. 91%. So please, this is very, 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 very important that you understand that most of America doesn't have any money. Or if they do have money, they are living very, very stressfully paycheck to paycheck to paycheck. Now, here's the punchline. I'm going to read that to you again. The government said employment grew by 528,000 jobs, 384,000 were for part-time work, 92,000 people added a second job. And listen to this, in July, the economy actually lost 71,000 full-time jobs. These are all manipulations. When we talk about the consumer price index, inflation being big in the news right now, and by the way, I'll explain why inflation will be big for a very long time. But inflation, very, very, very big in the news right now, 9% inflation. Stop and think. Just say to a customer, look, if you keep your money in cash right now and you have $100,000, at the end of the first year, it's only going to be worth $91,000. It'll only buy $91,000 worth of goods and services. See, we think people understand things like inflation. They really don't. They don't know how damaging, how destructive it's going to be. And please, the government at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Jerome Powell said he's going to stay after inflation. And it knocked the heck out of the stock market. If you know, as I'm recording this, 5 days in a row, the market's down. The market started up a little bit on the Friday. We're going to see what happens throughout the day. But I believe that the investor is starting to believe that Jerome Powell is serious about inflation. And to be honest, he should be. If you go back over time and you study, you'll find that a recession is easy to fix. Most of them last only 11 to 13 months. And the fix is very, very simple. They either print more money, they lower the interest rate. And by the way, let's be serious. Since 2008, we have not had a positive interest rate in the United States. In the United States, if the inflation rate has been higher than the Fed rate, then we've had negative interest rates. And how do you build an economy on negative interest rates? How is that real? And the rest of the world actually has real negative interest rates in lots of places. And because of high inflation, there are very few places on planet Earth that have positive growth using interest rates. This is going to be very, very serious. So stop and think about it. Again, recession's easy to fix, lower the interest rate, maybe even make it negative, print more money. Then that's monetary policy. Fiscal policy is then we go to the Congress and the Congress will reduce taxes and the Congress will make it easier for businesses to run. And lo and behold, a recession is fixed in a very short amount of time. Inflation, on the other hand, the reason every time there's a headline about it, oh, worst inflation in 40 years. Please understand, I'm old enough. January 23rd of next year, I'll have been 50 years an insurance agent. 50. I started when I was 6. But here's the thing I want you to understand. Back then, when Jerry Ford was the president, we were wearing buttons that said whip inflation now, win buttons, they were called. And it was because inflation was so serious. If you talk to your older customers, they remember when home mortgages were 10, 11, and 12, and car loans were 18%, and money markets were paying 18, 19, and 20%. And the customer would look you in the face and say, why should I give you money in an annuity that's only paying 12% when I can make 15 or 20 in a money market account? Little did they realize. So back then, the way they were able to fix inflation is Paul Volcker made a decision in 1980 that he was going to raise the interest rates to 20%. 20. You know why he got away with it? You're not going to believe this. In 1980, the United States was only 900 billion in debt as a country, not even to $1 trillion yet. 900 billion. So it didn't do really that much damage as far as to the government about where they were going to come up with the money to deal with things. Here's the difference now. In order to deal with inflation, seriously deal with inflation, he's going to have to approximate 8 or 9% interest rates, because that's what the inflation rate is. And if you were to do that, we're $31 trillion in debt. And at 8% of 31 trillion, please understand, that's approximately 50%, 60% of the current budget of the United States government. Now, you have to go a step further. What does that mean? That means the government doesn't have enough money to pay all of its bills. So what will the government do? they'll print more money. Of course they will. And that'll be inflationary. And that's why this is so hard to deal with. And then you have wage inflation that's still coming, people demanding, you're seeing it every day, teachers striking, all kinds of businesses that are striking to get higher pay. That's wage inflation so that they can keep up with the cost. And now the big manipulation is that, do you understand that food and energy costs are not included in the consumer price index because they're considered to be too volatile? Yet, please, they're a big concern as far as inflationary pressures. And we're in the insurance business. What do you think's about to happen to healthcare costs with 140 million baby boomers and Generation Xers turning 65 over the next 23 years? And by the way, remember when we used to tell people that 10,000 baby boomers a day were going to be turning 65? Well, I have a surprise for you. There's now 10,000 baby boomers a day, every day, turning 75. Where are we going to get the money? And isn't long-term care going to leap to the fore? Notice I didn't say nursing home care, I said long-term care. Isn't it going to leap to the forefront? And isn't the care eventually going to have to be given, because many of the nursing homes in America are facing serious financial jeopardy? In fact, predicted that 2/3 of them will be out of business by the end of next year. So how is the 1/3 of the nursing homes that are left, how are they going to be able to take care of 140 million aging Americans? And so what's going to happen? The responsibility is going to fall more and more on families. Let's be really honest. It's going to fall on the female member of the family. And it's not just going to damage the person receiving the care, it's going to damage the person giving the care, because they're going to have to quit their job, or they're going to have to work less time because they're going to be spending time caring for that aging parent. And that means the children are not going to get it much. Do you understand? This is a generational impact. And it's all solvable, all easy to take care of if you understand that the greatest benefit of life insurance is pennies that buy dollars, $1 that could do the work of many dollars. It's not an investment. That's rude to life insurance. That's a disclaimer to life insurance. It's unfair. It's the only way anybody can compete with what a cash value life insurance policy can do for the American people at this time, because I can do a number of things for them, an American, with the same dollar. They don't have to waste any money. They have less and less discretionary money. That's what's so amazing. I could go on here. Listen, I wrote down some stuff. The pandemic, is it going away? No, I've had COVID a couple of times, and I've had vaccinations up the Yahoo. And all it does for me is it makes me really tired or gives me the sniffles, but it takes me out of action for a few days, and actually longer than a few days sometimes, because I have a lot of elderly clients. So I have to spend more time talking to them on the phone than seeing them in person. We have all kinds of, please. I just spoke in Las Vegas and flew out over Lake Mead. Please understand, climate change is occurring. I don't care whether you think it's man-made or it's natural, it is occurring. And how'd you like to be in Mississippi, where they haven't had clean drinking water in Jackson, 200,000 person city, in 2 months, and Eastern Kentucky, and California, and Nevada, and Arizona, and Texas, all struggling to figure out how they're going to get enough water to their people. And now in California, the most recent information that's available to us is that they're not worried about an earthquake in California, although they should be. They're more worried about a major flood doing excessive damage in California. They don't know what they're going to do if that ever happens, if they would have ridiculous rainfall like we see in some places. You please have to understand, there's going to be massive issues that are going to have to be dealt with. Let me just give you a really simple one. Let's take our 2 or 3 biggest states in the United States. California has 40 million people living in there. Texas has 27 million people. Do you know that 67 million people is 1/5 of the population of the United States? And not long ago, people froze to death in Texas. Right now, there's such a heat wave in California, they don't know what to do. 100-degree temperatures all the time. It's drying up everything that they have. It's harming crops. Please, everything's going to be different. Everything's going to be more expensive. This isn't going to go away. And then if you throw Florida in, which has 19 million people, now you're talking about 86 million of the 330 million people that live in our country live in the 3 states that have some of the most serious climate issues that our country is going to face. What's that going to cost? Where are we going to get the money? And so here's how I start with a customer. I ask them questions. I say, can I ask you something? Because I want to make sure that you have tools to get in front of people and have great conversations, not pitches. Do you think taxes are going to be higher in the future, Mr. and Mrs. Customer? Just yes or no. Do you want to pay those? Do you think it's possible taxes could be way higher in the future? And then where most agents make a mistake is, of course, the customer is going to say yes. And so then they say, well, hey, I got a policy or I got a strategy. I don't. I haven't for years and years. And this is what we train people. We say, so can I ask you something? I know you have other advisors. I know you have other counselors. You have an accountant, you have an attorney. I bet you nobody's ever asked you this question. They go, well, what is that? Do you want to pay those taxes? And they go, well, no. And I say, so what are you going to do? Oh boy, I don't know. So you mean you're just going to let them come and take all your money that you worked your life for? Well, no. Well, I don't know what to do. So if you don't know what to do, that means you're just going to let them come and take all your stuff. And finally, sometimes it only takes 3 or 4 questions, but sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. They actually get irritated at me and they'll finally say something like, well, what do you think I should do? Or what would you recommend in my situation? Or if you were in my shoes, what would you do? Now, do you understand if you're patient and you wait for that question, you are no longer a salesperson. Your customer, your prospect, has just invited you to be their advocate, their advisor, and their counselor. They asked you for help. And I hope you'll laugh when I say this, but I don't offer to help anybody, haven't for years. You have to beg me to help you, and then I'll do it because I don't want adversarial relationships. I want to have great conversations about the issues of the day. And you always start with taxes because our industry is still the #1 industry able to deal with all the vagaries of income tax. We can do things for people where we can actually reduce or eliminate their income tax liability. And shouldn't Americans know that if they're going to pay higher taxes in the future? Second, loss of benefits. You know, I'm really laughing about this. With 140 million Americans turning 65, is Medicare going to go through some changes? Is healthcare going to go through some changes? You bet your life it is. And there's an act that just got passed that talked about the fact that the government is going to be able to negotiate with pharma for the prices of prescription drugs for Medicare recipients. Now, you know what nobody's saying? If you don't, you got to read the news, you got to read carefully. None of that takes effect till 2026, which means we're going to have 2 elections between now and when that law is supposed to take effect. And guess what? Depending on the outcome, it could change dramatically. As a matter of fact, right now, the current tax law that we're under sunsets in December of 2025. In 2026, we go back to the old tax law, which was higher taxes. The government doesn't have to do anything. They don't have to pass any rules, pass any laws. And guess what? You have higher taxes. And are they going to need them? You bet your life they are. And third, higher taxes, lower benefits, inflation. This is going to be deadly. Stop and think, everybody. Even if they're fortunate enough to get it down to 5, I'm telling you, I think that's as low as they're going to be able to go. Even if they raise interest rates a couple of more times, if they raise 75 basis points next in September and 75 basis points in October, they're still only going to get us up to 4% for the Federal Reserve rate. And if they raise another, so they'd have to go all the way to the end of the year with 0.75% raises to get us to almost a 5. And in order to deal with inflation, you have to somehow either have an equalization of the interest rates and the inflation rate, or you have to stop printing all the money. And if you go to usdebtclock.org, they'll show you that in the year 2000, with 300 million people living in our country, we had M2 money supply of about 5 trillion. But currently, with only 330 million, or a 10% increase in population, we now have 22 trillion of M2 money supply, 4 times the amount. And the debt clock is predicting that by 2030, only 7 years from now, they're talking about 34 trillion, another $12 trillion of money printed over the next 7 years in order to be able to pay the promised benefits. Inflation is going to be with us for a long time. The last time was from 1978 to 1990. Go and Google it. It doesn't go away easy. It is ridiculously hard to get rid of. And if for some reason we have a third quarter of negative growth in our country and we have inflation, we're going to have another word that we haven't said for 40 years called stagflation, where we're going to have negative growth and a reduced purchasing power of our money all at the same time. It's just frightening what we're doing, and we have serious issues that we're going to face as a country, and for that matter, for the world. It doesn't matter to you as NAIFA people, but right now, 25% of Pakistan is underwater. Can you imagine? Think of 25% of the United States completely underwater, flooded. It's happening all over the world. And in China, they are having such a serious drought, that they're back to burning coal instead of using turbine-driven, water-driven electricity. And that coal is going to cause climate change. Guys, you got to get this. This is coming. You barely are seeing what's going to happen, and none of it's bad news. Here, let me stop, because this is where you get in trouble if you do this too long. What I say to my customers at this point is I say, you do understand there is no bad news and there is no good news. There's only news, right? If it's bad news, it's because you didn't prepare for it. If you can turn it into good news, all you have to do is prepare for it. And that's what's so neat about being an American and having self-control. You have the ability to develop a strategy that, first of all, you never have to lose any money ever again. And second of all, we can keep this money relatively liquid, because think about it. During times of trouble, who is the most liquid industry on planet Earth? And that's the insurance industry. You bet your life it is. We were making loans to people during the Great Depression. Really get this. And so that liquidity allows us, instead of not having the money to take advantage of opportunities, now because we didn't lose any money and we have access to our money to take advantage of opportunities, we can actually turn them into beneficial situations rather than negative situations. This is the greatest time ever to do what we do, and the greatest time ever for us to be servants of our country. Servants in the best definition of the word. We can get in front of every American, and I'm going to show you how you can get in front of even poor Americans and save their bacon, and you can do it quickly and efficiently and help them too in just a minute here. Just want to touch on a couple of more things. Stop and think when you explain inflation. I always use the rule of a 72, and I'm spending a little time on inflation for a reason, because it's going to be around for a while. So if we have 7% inflation, there's an accounting rule, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, that if I divide the 7% inflation into 72, it approximates how many years before I'm going to need twice as much money to live on, or I will reduce my purchasing power by 50%. Said both ways. If I start at 65 on 50,000 a year, at 75 years old, I'm going to need 100,000 a year to maintain my standard of living. Or said a different way, my 50,000 that I retired on will only buy $25,000 worth of goods and services when I'm 75 years old. And if the inflation would continue on longer than that, oh my goodness, it's terrifying what would happen to the standard of living of the American people. Please, there is no end of the world. This is another thing. When I get to the punchline with a prospect or a client or a customer, I say, please, do you understand there's no end of the world? Here, all you're doing is making a decision. Would you prefer to have your standard of living as a family go down? Or would you like to maintain or even increase your standard of living? That's really all that's going to happen in the world. There's no end of the world. There's no end of the world scenario. And we will fix this, by the way. We will either fix this with great leadership, not happening, or we will fix this with a catastrophe, but we're going to fix it. And all the people that you take the time to get in front of, you're going to save their lives. It's vitally important that you understand that. Next is volatility. Listen to this. This morning I checked before the market opened, so I don't know if it's gone down a little bit, but a 10-year US government bond was all the way up to 3.26. Do you know in that same 12-month period, it has been as low as 1.26? So remember, a 10-year US government bond, the safest investment on the planet, backed by the full faith and confidence, taxing authority, and ability to print money of the United States government. If you'd have been in that this year and the interest rates went up 200 basis points, you lost 20% in the safest investment on the planet. And it's bouncing around like crazy. It was up here before, then went down to 2.8. It's not supposed to bounce around like that. It's supposed to be a very safe and secure thing. That shows all the manipulations that are happening. Go and check out the price of gold as the market's going down. Is gold going up or is gold going down? It's going down. That's not supposed to happen. It shows there's a magnitude of manipulations that are occurring. And you want to know something that's really neat about insurance? If you're in a life insurance policy or an annuity and the stock market crashes 50% and it's not a variable product, do you lose any money? And the answer is no. And second, do you have access to that money? So when that downward move is over, would you be able to temporarily access some of that money to take advantage of the move back up? Of course you could. And I even made up rules about it. The Van Miller rule of 1215. You just use your name, or it'd be even better, use the customer's name. Mr. and Mrs. Customer's rule of 1215. You have to, if you take any money out of these policies, you have to stay fully invested for 12 months and a day, because then you get long-term capital gains tax treatment, and you must pay the loan back within 15 months because we don't want any harm to come to the policy. So let's say we borrow out some money and the customer makes 20,000 bucks. I then ask them, I say, okay, now we've paid back the loan. You have $20,000 net after tax. What should we do with that money? And honest, they look at me all the time and they say, well, shouldn't we get another one of these policies? And I walk over and hug them because they get it. I just had a 91-year-old woman pass away who had 11 of these policies, doing exactly what I just described to you. And her two boys got 700,000 bucks. Who do you think they gave the money to? And I'm going to do the same thing with them for their families, and so on and so on. You actually can create a scenario where once you've established the strategy, then they will come to you for the rest of their lives because they see how well it works. Now, the last one, the big one, the one that we in our industry owe Tom Hegna a vote of thanks. is longevity. It's not about building assets in retirement. It's about building guaranteed income that you can't outlive. And nobody can do that better than an insurance and financial professional. Nobody. And so if you have $1 million and it's earning 0% return, then you have to use some of your principal to have your income. But if you've set up and created a 30 or 40 or $50,000 a year, and please, I talk with middle income people most of my career. So if you set up a 30, 40, 50,000 income in addition to their Social Security, they're happy as clams the rest of their life, and they don't even care what their investments do. And that's what's so wonderful about what he taught us, is that it's important to build guaranteed income. I've even created some cute questions to ask people. Have you ever heard of the rule, Mr. and Mrs. Customer? Are you taking advantage of the rule of 1-12-12? And they go, what? You don't know about the rule of 1-12-12? No, what is that? No, wait a minute. Wait, I got to stop for a sec. I'm stunned. I thought somebody like you for sure would know about the rule of 1-12-12. Well, what is that? Well, it's a rule, where people have figured out a way to dramatically reduce the income tax liability on their IRAs and 401ks and 403bs. I thought for sure you were taking advantage of that rule of 1-12-12. No, I never even heard of it. Gosh, boy, that's too bad. I really thought for sure you would be one of those people that would want to do that for you and your family. Well, I don't know. What is it? Well, please, we're out at a baseball game right now. Is there any chance that you give me 45 minutes in the next week or so? And I promise all I'm going to do is ask you a series of questions that will absolutely show you how to clarify how to use this rule of 1-12-12 to the benefit of you and your family. And it's very simple, you guys. It's just thinking outside the box, how to ask about what it is that we do. The standard deduction for a married couple over the age of 65 is $28,700. The 10% bracket for a married couple is $20,550, and the 12% bracket is $63,000. You add the three up, it's $112,250, and that takes you to the marginal tax bracket of 12%. Then I show the customer, I say, do you understand the effective tax rate on that is 8.6%, less than 10. Can I ask you something? If while you're alive, we could get rid of the income tax liability on all of this fully taxable money for 8.6%. And I have another surprise for you, that if we develop a strategy that has leverage in it, what if when you die, the death benefit will reimburse you for the taxes that you paid while you were alive, so that there's actually a way for you to get all of your money out of your IRA, 401k, 403b, 457 plan without paying 1 cent of the tax out of your own pocket. Gosh, if you could do that, when would you want to get started with something like that? Because isn't the problem going to be not with you and your wife, but when your kids inherit the money? Let's say you have $400,000, and promise me you won't laugh, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, but if they have a choice of taking it out over 10 years so they can reduce the tax liability, or taking it in a lump sum, which way do you think they're going to take it? They laugh right away. Well, they'll take it in a lump sum. So if they do that, it's possible they could pay 40% of that 400,000 IRA or 401k. That's $160,000. And have you ever thought about this? If you have 2 kids and you divide the 240 that's left, that's $120,000 for each child. Guess what? The primary beneficiary of your IRA or your 401k was the Internal Revenue Service. Was that exactly how you designed this program to work? And they go, well, no. Well, isn't that what you've done here? And again, I don't offer to help them. I keep asking them, are you going to leave it like that? What are you going to do? It's so funny. They say, well, geez, what can I do? What do you recommend? Well, that's what the rule of 1-12-12 is about. Stop and think about this. If you're living on $72,000 a year, do you know you could take another $40,000 a year out of your IRA after you retire, and you're over 65 years old, and in 10 years time, we could get your whole 400,000 out of your IRA for less than $36,000, 8.6%. And if we take that 400,000 out of your left pocket, put it in your right pocket, and now that 400,000 buys, let's just say 550,000 a face amount. You're not even that healthy. When you die, that 150,000 of leverage will reimburse your family for the 36,000 you paid while you were alive. And you're so brilliant. Think about how brilliant you are, Mr. and Mrs. Customer. You figured out a way to get your whole 400,000 out of your IRA or your 401k, and you didn't pay 1 cent of the tax out of your own pocket. Could you be any more brilliant if you tried? And they say, right, well, Van, I wouldn't know how to do this without you. And it has nothing to do with me. If you didn't have the 400,000, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You're brilliant. Make sure that you take advantage of your brilliance and you use these laws to your benefit and you use these products to your benefit. Okay, what do I got to do? It's hilarious. It's just always all. And what I'm hoping you're seeing as I'm sharing this with you, that I have a lot of fun doing this. This isn't a job, it isn't a career, it's my life. And I'm laughing and giggling the whole time, and people are giving me money. It's ridiculous. And I'm helping them. And I matter, and I have conversations with them. This doesn't have anything to do with it, but it's an aside. I think the next pandemic in America is all the people that didn't go and get checked early for heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. All diseases that, if caught early, are handleable. If not caught early, are decimating. And because of COVID and because of the expense of going to see a physician and so on and so forth, many people aren't doing it. And I have that conversation with everybody. Do you know what the next pandemic in America is going to be? All the heart disease, cancer, and diabetes that could have been dealt with if it would have been caught early. See, don't you see, you're so important. You matter so much. It's such a great, I get the chills thinking about it. You matter so much. You make such an important difference. You don't just sell life insurance and annuities and long-term care and mutual funds and all of those things. Medicare supplements and Medicare Advantage and car insurance and homeowners. If you have a great conversation, you can help people get back in control of their lives. And that's what they desperately want more than anything. They feel like they've lost control. So I have a few minutes left. I want to share a couple of quick sales ideas with you. I think this is the greatest time ever to sell single premium life insurance. I'm selling 5, 6, 7 of these a week. And I'm going to purposely pick a poor person, not a wealthy person, a poor person. I never see any of you other agents in my marketplace. I sell 5, 6, 7 of these a week, and I've made top of the table for 32 years in a row because of it. This is important. Go to a customer that lives in a 900 square foot house. They live on $36,000 a year Social Security, and they, believe it or not, save money out of it because their property taxes are only $900. Their health insurance is paid by the company they retired from until they pass away. And the wife or the husband, I'm not sexist about this, is a spectacular cook. And so they can make a chuck roast taste like prime rib. I mean, they're good cooks. And so here's what happens. I say to them, I go and see them, they got 40,000, not in an IRA or anything, just in a CD. And I say to them, let me ask you something. What are you saving that $40,000 for? Well, we want to give it to our kids. Well, can I ask you something? With inflation and everything, isn't life just filled with stress for your kids right now? Wouldn't it be better to give them to them now? And they go, well, just in case. They're worried. They don't want to be dependent on anybody. They don't want to be a burden. So they have this fund that they keep available. But you know what? They're only making 0.4% on it. That's the current rate for a 6-month CD on average. I'm going to hold up a sheet. Every Thursday in USA Today, every Thursday in the business section, they show you the average rates for 6-month, 1 year, 2.5 year, and 5 year CDs in the United States. By the way, every Tuesday, they show you the mortgage rates for 30-year mortgages and so forth in USA Today on the business page. And this is important, they're going up. And so that's not going to be good for the economy. If the housing market gets clobbered, the economy is going to get clobbered. Anyway, back to what we were talking about. So anyway, this guy on his $40,000 is making $16 a year, 16 bucks. That's it. So I say to him, let me ask you something. If inflation really gets serious and you'd have to use some of this money to maintain your standard of living, would you? He'd say, well, of course, I want to make sure my wife is okay. My wife wants to make sure I'm okay. So I say, let's pretend that you have to use 20,000 of your 40,000 to maintain your standard of living with all this terrible inflation. And then you both die. I kill them like I kill everybody a whole bunch of times. Again, please laugh. I say, when you die, your kids are then only going to inherit 20,000. And by the way, if that happens 10 years from now, the purchasing power of that 20,000 probably only going to be worth about 10. So, oh my goodness, you know, what you wanted to do for you and your family didn't work out. So I have a question for you. What if you could take the money out of your left pocket, put it in your right pocket, and you'd make about the same return that you're currently making on that 40,000, but now I could make the 40,000 look like 60,000. That's a single premium life insurance policy. They make the 40 look like 60. And you would still have access to the 40,000. So let's say you need to maintain your standard of living. So you use 20,000 of the cash value and then you die again. I said, isn't this fun? I've only been here like 10 minutes and I've killed you twice. Are we having a ball? And they chuckle a little bit nervously. But you have to kill people. We sell insurance, but do it nice. Have some fun. So anyway, while I'm there, I then say, but we don't subtract the 20,000 from the 40,000 you gave us. We subtract the 20,000 from the face amount, which is 60,000. And so you use 50% of the money while you're alive. And when you die, the family's still going to get $40,000. And I have another surprise for you. If you, for some reason, are as frugal as you seem to be, without taking any additional risk, you've increased your legacy for your family to 60,000, and you still have pretty much complete access to the money. Now, if that's all there was, you should do this right now, but that's not all there is, because this plan doesn't have to go through probate with a named beneficiary. It's incontestable and private. It can be controlled from the grave. If you have a spendthrift child and you want to make sure they don't blow it all, you can control it from the grave. It has creditor and predator protection. If you remember back to 2007 and 8, this is very, very important that you understand this. People were tripping over cracks in sidewalks to collect insurance money, having fake car accidents, all kinds of stuff. Well, this money has creditor and predator protection, and it has Medicaid versatility in most states where you can convert a lump sum asset into an income stream and possibly keep that money in the family rather than having to spend it down. It's so versatile. So can I ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, which would be more beneficial? I took the word smarter out of my vocabulary, because if you use the word smarter, you're attacking their intelligence. The words matter. Tom Hegna teaches us that. The words matter. Joe Jordan teaches us that. The words matter. Vitally important. So would this be more beneficial for your family than what you're currently doing? Yeah, and then they say something like, well, why didn't somebody else tell me about that? You never throw another agent under the bus. It lowers you in the eyes of the customer. Boy, I don't know why somebody didn't tell you, but you know now. What would you like to do? See, you're always a high dealing. You're always about them. If you'll notice in the presentation, I never talk about me one time. The more invisible in the sales presentation I am, the more sales I make. And the simpler I make it, the ridiculously simpler I make it, the bigger the sale I make. Because when they understand what I'm talking about, they give me all their money. not just buy a policy. Here's a second quick idea. It's using life insurance in a SPIA. Let's say you have a customer who's got $100,000 of money in a CD, and they're again making $400 a year, 0.4%. And what if you told them, what if I could take 30,000 of your 100,000 and I could put it in a straight life single premium immediate annuity, and you would be able to get approximately 2,000. This is for somebody that's 65 to 70. You'd get approximately $2,000 a year of income. And I have another surprise for you. The 2,000 of income would probably have less income tax liability than the $400 of interest you were earning before, because a SPIA is treated as a return of principal and interest. And that would be guaranteed for as long as you live. You would never outlive that money. And second, we would take the other 70,000 and we would buy you 100,000 face amount single premium life insurance. So if you only got one payment and died, your family still gets the 100,000. But stop and think about this. If you live 20 years and you didn't touch that 70,000 single premium life policy, and you added on all the dividends, or if it was a index universal life policy and you added on all the growth, would it grow in those 20 years? Bet your life it would. And so without harming what they're doing, you could build growth and separate and give them higher income return off of their money with the same exact amount of money, taking no additional risk. It's important that you understand. And if you find somebody that's healthy, and here's what I mean, instead of taking 30, you could take 40,000. And now 40,000 would be closer to $2,500, $2,600 a year. Okay. And now the 60,000 buys $100,000 face amount life insurance policy. And by the way, I want to go a different way. If lots of people don't like to sell single premium, and I don't know why, it's been a horrible lesson for the insurance industry. There are millions and millions of Americans who would have no income tax consequence of any kind owning a mech, because their income tax liability is so low that by transferring this small amount of money and the small amount of earnings, you would be doing them such a favor by showing them how to use leverage to increase their money, which would offset inflation and still allow them to use some of their money while they're alive and still pass on what they started with or more to their families. It's a tremendous opportunity, but lots of people don't like to sell mix, and I get that. So they take that 70,000 that we first talked about, and you'd either buy a 7-pay $10,000 a year policy, so it's not a mech, or a 10-pay $7,000 a year, and you could buy another period certain annuity to fund it. And so you can do this whatever way you want. And then the whole amount of money that would be transferred into the life insurance policy would now be income tax-free money rather than taxable under the MEC rules. There's so many wonderful, amazing things that you can do. Last but not least, and I'm going very fast, we're going to have some time to talk about this at the end, but I want to make sure that I point you in some directions where you start to look about where you can be a benefit. Here's another one. And again, I'm using 100,000 because it's just simple to give you an example. Inflation, currently 8%. They're probably going to announce a lower number at the next one because they artificially are using some things to reduce inflation. For example, they took a whole bunch of oil out of the petroleum reserve in order to lower gasoline prices. Now, every week, didn't we just tell you gas prices are not included in the CPI, but all the transportation costs to get food to you, all the other costs for businesses to run and so forth and so on, those are included in the consumer price index. And so what you have to understand is if you're not clear about how these numbers are determined, then you will misunderstand how badly they could harm you. So when I show agents about annuities, there's a guy named Ken Fisher, who likes to say, I hate annuities and so should you. And I went to my broker dealer and said, boy, would there be any way that I could take out an ad that says, I hate Ken Fisher and so should you? And they wouldn't let me do it. So anyway, I think an annuity is a perfect product for right now, especially inflation is driving up the interest rates. So let me show you the easiest, quickest sales presentation for an annuity. See, you think you're competing against other annuity companies. You are not, agents. There's 21 trillion. Check me out. Go to US federalreserve.gov, federalreserve.gov, and check. And right now there's $21 trillion in money market savings accounts, CDs, short-term bond funds, and checking accounts, essentially making zero, nothing. And so they're in saving. Your competition isn't other annuity people. Your competition is all the money that's sitting in these accounts. So you go to somebody who's got a $100,000 CD and you say, you're getting 0.4%. Boy, if you get that, that's $400 a year times 10 years, that's $4,000. Do you know we have an annuity that will pay you 4% for 10 years? That's $4,000 a year times 10 years is $40,000. The difference is $36,000. So doesn't that really just raise one question? And they go, well, what is that? I said, is there somebody at that bank, savings and loan or credit union, that you and your family are just so madly in love with that you would prefer that they get your family's $36,000 rather than your family get that $36,000? Is there some reason that you're doing that? They're stunned. They don't sit and do the math. They don't sit and understand that. And please, you agents out there are saying, well, I don't have a 4% annuity. If you have a 2.5% annuity, and you're talking to somebody who's never even known what an annuity was, you say, we can get you 2.5% on 100,000, which would be $2,500 a year. Times 10 years is 25,000. The difference is $21,000. The question's the same. Is there somebody at that bank, savings and loan or credit union that you're just so madly in love with that you and your family are just so concerned about that you would rather they get your family's 21,000 rather than you? And the second thing I want to say to all of you is if inflation is 8%, it takes 9 years before you need twice as much money to live on. But if you can get them 4% in an annuity, now the damage is only 4% a year. And then if you go a step further and you reduce the taxes on that, but let's just do the straight math, 4%, now it takes much longer for inflation to be damaging to their money. It allows them to survive the inflation because you got in front of them and showed them ways to offset, not necessarily completely beat, but offset inflation so that they're still in good position to take advantage of opportunities down the road. Now, if you know me at all, I'm freaking out here right now because I got about 50 more ideas that I would love to share with all of you. I want you to hear from somebody who's been a member of this organization for 50 years. I think it's the most exciting time ever to be an insurance agent. I think it's the most exciting time to be a member of NAIFA. I'm hoping that they'll allow me to tell you this. Please go to my website, vanmiller.com, vanmueller.com. Sign up for my newsletter. I talk about this stuff every month in great detail, and not just talk about it. I give you the questions. I show you how to use the products in a way that will benefit your customers. And you are so important. If you ever need to understand how vital you are to the safety and security and financial success and the retirement success of this country, know it now. You need to get out and get in front of everybody you can. You need to ask them tons of questions and have great conversations, and understand that you don't sell life insurance, annuities, mutual funds, long-term care, critical illness, any of those products. Your basic motivation is to inspire people to take action. And you can't do that by talking about you You can only do that by asking about them. I'm so grateful that you allowed me to share some time with all of you. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you have any questions, please feel free. We want to help in any way that we can. Thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.